Southeast region. Navy Criminal Investigative Service Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Michael Killer, NCIS Central Field Office. FBI Special Agent in Charge for the Knoxville Field Office, Ed Reinhold. ATF Special Agent in Charge of the Nashville Field Office, Stephen Gerardo. Chattanooga Police Chief Fred Fletcher. Assistant Commissioner of Tennessee Department of Homeland Security, David Perkey. I want to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who has participated and is participating with us in this investigation, especially the FBI, whose tireless hours by several hundred agents at every level are worthy of our deepest gratitude. The cooperation and coordination of law enforcement and the military at every level has been extraordinary. At the end of our comments, the FBI Special Agent in Charge, Mr. Reinhold, will answer a few questions. Please understand that due to the nature of this ongoing investigation, we will not be able to answer all of your questions. Please identify yourself and your organization you represent when you ask a question. As this involves an ongoing investigation, no further regular press briefings are scheduled after today unless information becomes available that can be shared with the public. You will be notified in advance of any releases at upcoming
States and its territories. Their response to the attack was immediate. They took cover. They egressed to safety. During the attack, one Marine was wounded. He has been treated and released. The 131 Marines and sailors of Battery M, 3rd Battalion, 14th Marines are part of the 4th Marine Division, whose 17,000 Marines and sailors are located in communities across the United States, from Maine to Hawaii. On 16 July, 20 Marines and 2 Navy corpsmen were at our Chattanooga Training Center inspecting their equipment. They had recently returned from a field training exercise in California. Although I cannot share the specific details about what happened that morning, I can tell you that our Marines reacted the way you would expect. Rapidly going from room to room, they got their fellow Marines to safety. We are incredibly thankful for the bravery of the responding police officers. Their immediate actions that day saved lives. Every effort to help them through this difficult time. To this end, the Marine Corps has assigned teams of Marines to support our families in Chattanooga and other locations in the United States. Marines and sailors are warriors, and we are resilient. That said, this is a very difficult and painful time as we cope with the loss of our Marines and sailor. We are providing support and resources to help them deal with this tragedy. The outpouring of support from the citizens of Chattanooga and the surrounding communities is deeply appreciated. It gives us strength. Words cannot express how much. And our Navy shipmate, Petty Officer Second Class Randall Smith. They have joined the ranks of our heroes who have died in the service of this great nation. They will be missed, but never forgotten. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Just 6 days ago, a senseless act of violence at both the Chattanooga Recruiting Station and the Navy Operational Support Center claimed the lives of 5 members of our Department of the Navy family. My deepest sympathies remain with the families of our sailor and our fallen Marines, whose lives were taken with these unimaginable acts of violence. The grave impact reaches far and wide. On behalf of Navy leadership, I would especially like to thank the Chattanooga Police Department under the leadership of Chief Fletcher. Absolutely amazing. And the first responders who reacted and responded that day with such veracity and determination that they most certainly saved lives. Additionally, the leadership from and the coordination amongst the federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to conduct a thorough investigation is comprehensive and reassuring. We are committed to work with our partners and law enforcement represented here, as you see on the stage, to investigate, review, and guard against future vulnerabilities and to safeguard the security of our service members and their families. It is an absolute imperative. Throughout our nation's history, sailors and Marines have served overseas in harm's way and have experienced the deep and lasting pain of combat loss. Today, here at home, we feel that pain. And at the same time, we are reminded that we serve with and alongside brave and valiant sailors and Marines, just like those at the recruiting station and the Navy Operational Support Center, who were well trained and they responded courageously under fire. The best our nation has to offer. In the days ahead, our priority will be to take care of the families of those affected. While the tragedy in Chattanooga is both devastating and senseless, the healing process is ongoing of recovery. There is significant interest in the well-being of Petty Officer Smith's family and the families of our fallen Marines. And I have had the opportunity to meet with Mrs. Smith. She is a remarkable woman, and she is resilient. She is extremely appreciative of everyone who has expressed their concern, yet she also asks for your understanding in respecting her privacy as she goes through this very difficult time. She has faced a horrific tragedy, as have the Marine families. I can assure you, without a doubt, that we are honored and humbled to serve our nation, both at home and overseas. And what Chattanooga has done to rally during this very difficult time is the epitome of why we serve. God bless America.
Afternoon. Before I get into the actual briefing concerning the events of that day, I would like to thank the community here in Chattanooga for the outpouring of support that we have received concerning this investigation. The folks have stepped to the plate and performed admirably, supporting us as we do this investigation. I know there are going to be many questions about this tragic event, especially about the shooter and why he did what he did. We have those same questions and are working hard to get those answers. But please keep in mind, this is a complex and ongoing investigation, and we are still in the early stages of piecing together exactly what happened and why, so we can provide you the most complete and accurate picture. It is very important not to jump to conclusions about what happened, so I would ask that you please be responsible when talking about the case. Let us gather the facts we need in order to honor our hero's ultimate sacrifice. With those caveats, I want to share some additional information with you about what we believe happened at both crime scenes, which will no doubt show how heroic our service members were on July 16th. Shortly before 11 a.m. on July 16th, the shooter drove up to the Armed Forces Recruitment Center and fired shots. He did not get out of his vehicle at that time. He then proceeded to the Amnicola Highway site, where he crashed through the gate at the Naval Reserve Center. The shooter exited his vehicle armed with an assault rifle, a handgun, and numerous magazines of ammunition. A service member from inside the facility observed him and opened fire on him, firing several rounds at him. The shooter then responded by shooting into the building. The shooter approached the front of the building, entered into the facility, and then shot the first service member inside the facility. He then has made his way throughout the building, continuing to shoot at those who he encountered. He then exited the building out of the back of the facility and into the gated motor pool area, where he killed 2 more service members. 2 service members attempted to provide cover and assist the military personnel getting over the fence and away from the shooter. The shooter continued to fire and killed 2 additional service members. The shooter then attempted to move inside the compound, at which point he was engaged by the Chattanooga Police Department, where 1 CPD officer was wounded. CPD returned fire and neutralized the shooter. The heroic actions of these service members doubtlessly saved numerous lives. Moving forward, we have evidence collected and testing are still ongoing with the FBI, along with our law enforcement partners, and we will continue to work tirelessly on this investigation. The FBI has been working almost 400 leads and has an estimated 250 FBI personnel on the ground in the area, and hundreds more working across the country and around the globe on this investigation. I will leave you with this. There's a lot of reporting out there on what some people believe to be bits and pieces of evidence. Whether true or not, we cannot explain what these reports might mean without the full context of the evidence that a thorough investigation provides. And let me reassure you that the FBI will conduct a very thorough investigation. Again, I would like to thank our law enforcement partners, NCIS, ATF, and other agencies involved in this investigation, and our community partners as well as the entire community of Chattanooga for their continued cooperation and support. At this time, we will take a few questions. All questions will be answered by myself, so please do not direct questions toward other members of the panel. For those of you who didn't hear the question, and I will try to paraphrase it and make sure I get it right, reports of mental illness by family members concerning the shooter, as well as possible radical information on the internet that he may have observed. I'm not going to go into the details as to what we have found on the various pieces of media that we have obtained, again, because it is an ongoing investigation. As far as his mental health, we have heard the same reports, and we are investigating that to determine whether or not there is any validity to those. Right down here in front.
Hey, Aaron Cooper with CNN. There's been reports that there were some personal or privately owned weapons used in responding to the shooter. Can you tell us how many of those were used, who used them, and did anybody hit the shooter? Did anybody hit anyone else? Was there any friendly fire incident?
Okay. Well, since he had a microphone, I don't think I need to repeat the question. So we'll start with the weapons that were recovered inside the facility. We found 3 weapons inside the facility that we believe, or we know, belong to the shooter. 1 weapon was located in the vehicle, and 2 weapons were located on his person. 2 additional weapons were recovered at the scene. Those weapons belonged to service members, and they were, at least one of the weapons was discharged at the subject. Whether he was struck by those individuals is unclear at this time. The autopsy results are still pending, and once we get those, we'll be able to make that determination.
Were those officers authorized to have those weapons?
As far as any authorization of weapons, it's not relevant to our current investigation. That's an investigation that will be conducted separately by the military, and I'm sure they will address it at some point when they have completed their investigation.
Since we have NCIS standing behind.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next so we can share the field here. Who's in the, yes, sir.
Miguel Almaguer with NBC News. I'm curious if the ballistic reports have come back from the shooting, or if you know all of the victims were in fact shot by the gunman and not officers that may have been responding and trying to take down the shooter.
Okay. I can tell you, and the question is, and I'm not sure you had the mic up high enough for everybody here, were the ballistic reports returned that would indicate whether or not the shooter, or the victims, I'm sorry, whether the victims were hit by friendly fire? All indications are, and we do not have the ballistic reports yet back, preliminarily it looks like all victims were killed with the same weapon. Yes, ma'am. The question is, can I tell you about the shooter's uncle in Jordan, and is that part of our ongoing investigation? The FBI will explore every possibility and every relative and associate that he has, no matter where they are located. If his uncle is located in Jordan, then I am certain that we will work with the Jordanian government to get any information that we possibly could.
Eric
Yes, sir.
Schelzig, Associated Press. You've been doing a lot of interviews of friends and family in the 2 days running up, or I guess in the time running up to the incident. I was curious what you could share with us about what you found out from those interviews, specifically in these 2 days where the family thought he was back in his work job elsewhere when he's really here with the rented Mustang.
So the question is, can I share with you anything that the relatives or people we've interviewed? And I suspect you suspected that answer would be mine. Obviously, is an ongoing investigation. We are extremely, as we said earlier, we've covered well over I forget the number of leads, but a significant number of leads. Every day, more and more leads are generated. We are running full speed. We have close to 700 to 1,000 agents working, or personnel working on this full time. So. Again, I can't share the particulars of any statements given to us by witnesses. Yes. I can tell you that the question is, can I tell you where the weapons were purchased, were they purchased legally, and were any of the weapons modified? None of the weapons were modified. As for where the weapons were purchased, we know where the weapons were purchased, and I'm not prepared to discuss any further than that. Again, we're pursuing those leads. Yes, sir.
Wondering if you could clarify once again where the Marines were slain died. I was a little confused when you said the 2 Marines tried to provide cover for Marines trying to help others get to safety. 2 died inside and 2 outside. I just wondered if you could go over that scenario one more time.
Okay. one service member died inside the facility, or was wounded inside the facility. 4 service members were killed outside the actual building, so inside the fence. So four service members were killed inside the motor pool area. 1 service member was mortally wounded inside the facility.
There was just some confusion because the aerial photographs that they showed 2 Marines slain outside, and you're telling us that 4 were.
I'm telling you, 4 service members were slain outside the facility, meaning the building itself, but inside the fence. 1 service member was mortally wounded inside of the facility and in the back with the.
Eric Obligator from WDEF News as well. How close was the shooter to actually gaining access into the building itself?
As I described the scenario here, the shooter made entry into the building, proceeded to move through the building, pursuing the sailors and Marines who were attempting to evade him. So he did make entry into the facility. Yes, ma'am.
How far away were CPD officers once the shooter made entry into the gate? I know there was some time were they already on route to that location?
My understanding is that, and where were CPD in relation to where the shooter was when he crashed through the gate? The CPD was in pursuit, however, not right on his bumper. They made entry as fast as they could. Again, once inside that facility, you have to try to locate the shooter, which is difficult because obviously he is moving. So they are moving toward the gunshots, and as soon as they encountered him, they engaged him. Back over here.
WS in Nashville. There are varying reports about whether this individual was a follower of radical Islam, whether he was an extremist. In your research and investigations, have you found that he was radical in his sense and was willing to commit an act of terrorism?
So the question is, has our investigation determined whether or not he was radicalized? At this point, it's too early in the investigation to determine whether or not whether or not he had been radicalized. So we are pursuing that as a possibility, but it is too early in the investigation to determine. Yes, ma'am.
Were there still people in the building when the shooter returned and was stopped by CPD?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Were there still people trapped in the building when the shooter came back inside after he went outside the first time?
The shooter never re-entered the building. Once he exited the building out of the back, he never re-entered. Yes, sir. We obviously are, I'm sorry, and I know I need to repeat the question for folks so that they can hear. The question is, was he acting alone or were others acting in concert with him? And had he been directed to do so through any affiliation overseas? At this time, we're treating him as a homegrown violent extremist. We believe he acted on his own that day. We believe he entered the facility on his own. We do not have any indication that anyone else was assisting him on that day. I'll go right back here with the, I believe, the plaid shirt.
I just wanted to find out, how long was the shooter active once the crash was fired into the naval facility?
Our understanding of the timeline is the entire event from the time he crashed the gate till he finished took anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you.
This will be the final press conference we'll have. If we have additional press conferences, we'll notify you by email or through our distro list. If you have any follow-up questions, some of us will be here to try to shed some light on things you may need. You'll hear from the U.S. Attorney's Office if there's an additional press conference. There are none planned at this time. Thank you.